Hey, how's everybody doing today? Let me make sure I'm not muted. All right, we're looking good. If you can give me a thumbs up to make sure that you're able to hear me okay and you're able to see my live stream, that's always super helpful. But welcome back to another cyber live stream. I know I took last week off. It was Tuesday wasn't the holiday, but Monday of last week was a US national holiday. So I figured a lot of people would probably be off work, at least on that side of the planet. And so we skipped last week, but now I'm back. It feels kind of weird skipping it. It feels like it's been longer than 2 weeks since the last live stream, but I guess I'm getting used to this cadence and schedule now. But any case, welcome back to our cyber live streams, our weekly cyber live streams. It's good to have you. Today's going to be an interesting episode because I'm going to do things a little bit differently than usual, and I'll go into a little bit more details as far as that goes in just a minute here. But again, if you can give me a comment or give me a thumbs up reaction either on YouTube or LinkedIn where we're live streaming, just letting me know that you're actually able to hear me and we can move forward. And then I'll go ahead and share my screen and we'll dive right in talking about introduction to AWS IAM Enumeration. And so this, the reason I wanted to schedule this specific topic is because it's actually one of our most popular labs on the platform. So people are obviously very interested in this, and for good reason. This is kind of a fundamental foundational layer lab that if you're going to go on to some of our more intermediate and advanced labs, you absolutely have to understand this concept. If you can do AWS enumeration, especially via the CLI, then you can't properly evaluate the security posture of your AWS environments, plain and simple. It's that important. So everything good? All right. Thank you, Marino. I appreciate the comment. Thanks for letting me know. It's super helpful. Welcome, everybody. It's good to see you. I think we've got some new faces today. So welcome if this is your first time. I also recognize some faces as well. So welcome back. It's good to see some familiar faces here. Let's go ahead and dive right in. Let me go ahead and share my screen here. And we'll talk about what's going on, what we're going to be doing. And I've got a couple questions for you as well. Hey, Paulo, welcome. How you doing? See, we've got some cloud security engineers in chat today. Good to see. I think this will be helpful for you. Okay, so a few things that I want to talk about here as we dive in and get started. The first thing I want to talk about is we have this course that is mostly, if not all, free labs. And I bring this up because the lab we'll be using today is in this course here. So if you haven't already checked out this course, let me go ahead and drop the link in chat so that you're able to access it. And like I said, a lot of this is free anyway. So it's not like I'm trying to sell you anything. I'm just trying to give you the tools you need to succeed in this field. And a lot of those tools to get started are going to be part of the syllabus. So you can see here we have a getting started with the AWS CLI lab. We did this in a prior live stream. So if you've never used the AWS CLI before, or if you need a refresher, you want to go a little bit more in depth, I'm going to drop a link to that live stream in just a second. But we're not going to cover some of those fundamentals today because we've already done that. To save some time, we'll instead move on straight to introduction to AWS IAM enumeration. So I'll open up this link and I'll also open up this cheat sheet because this has a bunch of commands that we're going to be using today. After that, we've also got some additional labs that I highly recommend going through, but we won't cover these today. So this is what we'll be talking about. And if I switch over, we've got the cheat sheet here, and then where'd my lab go? And then we've got the lab right here. So introduction to AWS IAM enumeration. Like I just said before, this is one of our most popular labs. And actually, before I forget, let me go ahead and share the get started with the AWS CLI link. So if you didn't get to attend this live stream, and if you're not already super comfortable and familiar with the CLI, definitely check out that live stream. It's going to help a lot in getting you caught up. Of course, do that after this live stream, but go back and take a look at that. But so for this lab, like I said before, this is one of our most popular ones, and for good reason. This is a foundational lab. I would definitely recommend going through it. And so when I was thinking about how to make this an interesting live stream, instead of walking through this lab step by step, we already have a video walkthrough, as you can see here. And I also have a text guide walkthrough that you can scroll through. So I don't think it'd be super helpful for me to just go through this step by step. Instead, I would recommend that you do this on your own time because this is free. Go straight to this lab. It's in that course that I'll link to. You can also go straight to this link if you want to once you're authenticated. But instead of doing that, I want to spice things up a little bit today. And what I mean by that is we're actually going to be using AI in this live stream, and we're going to show it interacting with the AWS CLI in order to do this for us. So the thing with the AWS CLI is, even though it's extremely powerful, you need to run a lot of commands to get basic information. Like, there's not just one command you can execute that would give you the users, the groups, the roles, all of the permissions, all the roles in the account, all the roles that you have access to. Like, that would probably take 10 plus commands if you even already know what you're looking for. Now, if you don't know what you're looking for yet, then it could take 20 plus commands. So it's not a very efficient or effective way of doing it, but it is a powerful way of interacting with AWS. And so the reason I bring that up is because we can actually use AI to speed this up a lot. Now, I'd recommend learning how to do it manually first, grind out that process, figure out how that works manually, and then you can start to introduce some AI tools. Don't do it the opposite. I see a lot of people doing that nowadays, and I don't think that's a good approach. I think you're kind of trying to shortcut your learning and you're not learning the foundations. So please don't misconstrue this live stream as me telling you to replace learning foundations with AI. Instead, use it as an enhancement. And I think by the end of this live stream, you'll see exactly what I mean when I say that. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start this lab. It's going to spin up. It's very fast. But while it's spinning up in the background here, I'm going to switch over to my terminal and we're going to talk a little bit about Claude Code, because I don't know how many of you have used Claude Code before. So if you can drop me just a comment in chat here and let me know, have you used Claude Code before? Or if you're not using Claude Code, or if you haven't, are you using tools like Cursor? Are you using Windsurf? Are you using VS Code with something like Klein? Like, what's your main tool of choice when it comes to scripting, programming, interacting with clouds? What do you usually use day to day? If you want to let me know in chat, that'll be super helpful. But I've been using Claude Code quite heavily for the better part of at least 6 months, maybe even longer than that. Unfortunately, they've nerfed it a lot in the last few weeks, and you see a lot of complaints on social media about this, and I've experienced this as well. It's been nerfed a lot. It used to be the best tool with the best models on the planet, in my opinion. Now, I don't think that's the case anymore, so I'm kind of experimenting and trying out stuff like Codex and some other tools as well, but I'm curious to hear what your experience has been. Now, if you've not used Claude Code before, obviously you'd have to install it on your machine, and then you'd have to select the models that you want to use. And you can either use this through the API with API keys, where you'll be based on use or build based on usage, or you can authenticate via your subscription, and that way you don't pay extra through the API keys. You pay that monthly fee, whether it's $20, $100, or $200 a month, and you'll never get charged more than that. So there are a couple ways of accessing the models through that. And then once you're into Claude Code, then you can select whatever model you want to use. The default is to set some limits on Opus, because Opus is very expensive, and then it switches you over to Sonnet 4. So that's probably what I'll do today, but I don't know that we'll even burn through all the Opus tokens in this, to be honest with you. It's not going to be very intensive. It's not going to use a lot of different tokens. Now, if we search Claude Code, if you can that way you can get more information about what it is and how it works. Like I said, if you're not already familiar with that, then I would recommend checking it out. It's very easy to install. You can install it with just this command here that I copied, and then you can get started with just typing Claude in your terminal, and then it will spin up what you see exactly here, and you can start to chat with the models this way. So I get a comment here that says, first time seeing it, but I'm pretty new to automation. Okay, perfect. Well, I think this is going to be a fantastic session for you. If I go a little bit too fast, feel free to stop me. Feel free to ask questions. That's what I'm here for. And so, hopefully this is a good session and a helpful session for you. Is it Marino? Hopefully I'm pronouncing that name correctly. If not, let me know. All right, so now that we've got this set up, now that we've got Claude running, and we have our lab that spun up, we get back an access key ID and secret access key, and then username here, but you can kind of ignore that username because we're going to enumerate in just a moment. So now I need to configure my CLI using these credentials. So instead of doing that directly in Claude, just for simplicity, I'll open up a separate tab in my terminal here, and all I'll do is I'll type configure profile, and then we'll call this live stream. So for this new CLI profile, I'll grab my access key ID and I'll paste it in here. And then I'll do the same thing for my secret access key, paste that in here. We'll set the region to US East 1, and then the output to JSON. Okay, and so typically when you're doing this, when you're configuring your CLI for our labs, then you might want to run something like sts get caller identity to get information about who you are authenticated as in this environment. So then you get, you get your account number, you get user ID, and you get ARN. That ARN also contains the account ID. It tells you whether you're a role or assuming a role, or whether you're a user, and then your username here. So that username is going to match what we saw in the lab interface. That's great. It's a great way to get started. But like I said, instead of going through and manually enumerating the user information, username, groups in this account, roles in this account, what policies I have associated with me, what access I have through those policies, and so on and so forth, which is what we do in the video and the written guide. Instead, now I'm going to switch over to Claude Code and I'm going to talk to it and ask it to do what I want it to do. And I've also got something that lets me verbally talk. So instead of you just watching me typo left and right, I'm literally going to talk to it and give it instructions this way. So this should be interesting. We might get some hit or miss results. We'll kind of experiment and go from there, but I think it'll be pretty fun. All right, sorry I messed up your name. I apologize. Think of it as in Spanish and Mourinho, maybe. I'm not good with the Spanish accents, if that's the right term for that. So sorry if I'm butchering your name, but I appreciate the comments. Thanks for being here today, and apologies for me butchering your name. I have a difficult French name as well, so I'm kind of used to that as well, unfortunately. All right, so let's do this. Let's see how this works. And to talk to it, I'm going to hit a keyboard shortcut, and then you'll see a little icon. So when you see that icon, I'm talking to it, not necessarily talking to you. I know that might otherwise be confusing. So we'll say something like, hey, so I'm doing a live stream right now. So first of all, say hi to my live stream for me, please. And then what I want you to do today is I want you to use my AWS CLI that's already installed. And in particular, I'm going to give you the profile name that I want you to use because it's already configured with an access key and a secret access key. And so you already have access to this AWS environment, but I want you to enumerate information about this user because I know I'm already authenticated as a user. I want you to retrieve policies for that user, whether it's part of groups, whether it has access to roles. Basically just give me a lay of the land when it comes to this AWS environment. So I'll release my keyboard shortcut. It'll take a second because I said a lot of things to it. And then here's the profile info right here. So it's going to use the profile live stream, and that way it knows what credentials I want it to access. A quick disclaimer before we hit enter here. Keep in mind that if you're doing this in a live AWS environment, if you want to do this in your personal one or even a corporate one, you might want to get approval first. But second of all, these credentials are read-only. There's no damage that this model can do in my environment. If you're doing this with credentials that have write access, be very cautious of that. Understand you're entering dangerous territory, right? So that's my disclaimer here. Start with read-only access, and then also understand that it might be able to access secret values if you have secret values stored in that environment. So I'm doing this because this is a throwaway sandbox environment. If you're doing this in a live environment, be very cautious of this. Okay, so we'll press enter, and then it'll think about it. It'll kind of process what we asked it to do. And then it's passing that on to probably Opus right now because I don't think I've hit the limit for today. So it's going to be passing this on to Opus 4.1. And as we can see here, it's thinking about what I want it to do. So first of all, say hi to the live stream. So it says hello to everyone watching the live stream. Perfect. We've got a polite LLM here, which is great. And then it's going to start actually enumerating information. And as we predicted earlier, it's going to run that exact same command that I ran previously. This is kind of the de facto standard of this is what you should always do when you get your first credentials, just as a sanity check, making sure that you're authenticated as an identity that you believe you're authenticated as. So we'll press yes. We need to give it explicit permissions here. And we can see here that in Claude Code, we can hit Control R. And when we hit Control R, we can see the output of that bash command. So we can see the exact same result that we had in the previous terminal window, which is great. But then it's going to dive right in and it's going to start listing a bunch of stuff. So again, these are the commands that we should be running manually, but instead it's going to do it automatically for us, and we can see what the outputs are. So there are no attached inline policies here. which is fine. That means we're getting our permissions through something else, in this case, probably a group, and it can detect that, right? It says no attached policies directly on the user. So let me check for inline policies next. It probably won't find anything either because I don't think we had, actually, yeah, I got that backwards. In this environment, we have inline policies and not the opposite. I thought it was backwards, but that's fine. So if we do Control R, we can see that we have our result right here. And then we have our policy name with allow enumerate roles. So it's already starting to get some useful information here. Next, it's going to run this command of get user policy. So it's going to pass in our username, and then it's going to pass in that policy name that it just retrieved with the prior command. So you can start to see what I was saying at the very beginning of this live stream, that you can't just output a bunch of stuff with one command using the CLI. Instead, you have to string along a bunch of different commands. And so that's where automation can really come into play. Now, right now, we're having an LLM do this for us step by step by executing these commands individually. But what I'll do at the very end, once we've mapped everything out, is I can actually ask it to create a script for us, and that script will go through this a lot faster. We could have done this instead of going through this step by step as well. But again, I think it's important to understand, like, here's what actually works. Here's how you do this manually. Then here's how you can start to implement automation. I think those steps are important to understand. Now we can see here, it's trying to list groups for our user. We'll go ahead and do that. And then looking at the outputs, we'll see that there is indeed a group. We've got a group named some crazy name here. What we're interested in is the developers. And then we can see the ARN, or unique identifier, of that developers group. Now we're going to list the attached group policies for that group that we just discovered. And, I'm talking through this, but we're going to be pressing enter here for a few minutes as it goes through and executes a bunch of different commands. So I'll just manually spot check them, make sure that it's not going off the deep end, doing some crazy unrelated tangential stuff. And as long as it's looking good, then we'll just press enter. You can take your time as you go through this, right? There's no rush. Now here's something a little bit interesting. So it got the group policy for our group name developers. And within that, we can see that there is a policy document. That policy document has an action of list access keys for our user Mike and user Joel. That's interesting. And then an effective allow for all of these actions here as well. Okay, so we're starting to get some interesting information here. The LLM is seeing this, it's making mental notes of this, and it's going to keep going by listing out roles. So this is kind of giving us like a nice comprehensive view of what groups do we have, what users do we have, what policies do they have, what roles are in this account, and so on and so forth. And it discovered a role called support role. So that's interesting. Now it's actually trying to assume this role. I'm going to stop it here. I don't want to do this. This is not a lab where we're actually trying to do stuff like that. So instead, I'm going to hit escape, and I'm just going to say, hey, go ahead and skip trying to assume roles for now. Just keep going otherwise, but we're not going to be assuming roles in today's session. So I'm just correcting it, course correction, and I can do that very easily. Something that's harder to do if you just have it in YOLO mode and it's just doing whatever it wants with authorization. When you're doing this step by step, you can really guide it a lot better and get better results typically. Okay, so now we're going to list all the users in this environment, and it's going to keep going. As we can see here, we have a user named Chris, we have Joel, which is who we are, we have a Mary, and we have a Mike. So it's getting some good info. Now it's going to try to list access keys for that user, for our particular Joel user, which I'm cool with. Let's do that. Any questions so far, by the way, as we're going through this? I know it's kind of like going quickly through it because it's an LLM, so it's a lot faster at thinking this stuff than our human brains are. But does that make sense so far? Do you understand what I'm doing here and what's going on? Any questions, let me know in chat. I'm keeping an eye on it, so feel free to ask. Mourinho, I know this is newer stuff to you, so any questions about this so far? Or is that kind of making sense? So now we're retrieving or trying to retrieve other user information. We've got Mary here. And by the way, it notices stuff. It's like, oh, this is interesting. Mary has a permission boundary policy. Let me check what group each user belongs to. Okay. So it's making a mental note. And what's nice about this too is at the end, we can have a complete report, and that report can get passed on to the teams, and we don't have to necessarily write the entire thing ourselves. We'll probably want to tweak some stuff, right? Don't just like have AI generate a report and then send it without reviewing it. That's a recipe for disaster, but it can definitely shortcut that significantly. So now it's trying to figure out what group Chris is part of, which is great. Awesome. Glad to hear that the labs on the site have helped a lot. Yeah, I know this is, like I said, this is kind of a building block, right? So if you know this one, you can move on to the other ones. If you've done some of the other ones before, you can come back to this one, and this one will start to make a lot more sense, right? This is a very beginner-friendly one, but it can also be pretty overwhelming when you're first getting started. You're like, wow, this is a lot of information being thrown at me from this environment, right? So it can definitely be a little bit overwhelming, but if you do it a few times and then go on to the other labs and then come back, I think it starts to make a lot more sense as you do that. Yeah, and like you said, practicing with these commands over and over again in our lab environments, in your own environments, especially when it's read-only, you're not going to break anything, so you can just kind of experiment and do stuff and see how it goes. All right, so this is interesting. I just got an access denied, right? So we don't have full admin permissions to this environment, and that's okay. That's kind of expected. If you get access denied here, that's fine. Just keep going. You're gathering information. So understanding the boundaries of your permissions is just as important as the opposite of that, as getting the information. Errors are information in and of themselves. Sometimes they can even reveal useful data, right? Like it'll say here is not authorized to perform this specific thing because no identity-based policy allows. Now, sometimes error messages can be misleading. This happens a lot where you look at an error message and it tells you one thing, but really that's just AWS's systems kind of hiding the full complexity of it. And so it can send you down a rabbit hole that's just not fruitful. So keep that in mind too. AWS error messages can sometimes be very misleading, but other times they can reveal some useful data as well. So they're good to document. So we're gonna keep going. We'll get some more access denied errors. It's kind of figuring out what the boundaries of our permissions are. Like I said, that's very useful in and of itself. And then I think here in the next couple of minutes, we'll probably be wrapping up with this portion. We'll get that summary, and then we can look at creating some scripts that do this a lot faster than having an LLM execute each command one by one. In fact, there we go. Speak and it shall receive. So we have here our AWS environment enumeration summary. So let's take a look at it. Let's see what's going on. So our current user identity is confirmed to be Joel. We already knew that, but good to confirm it. We have our account ID and user ID. We can look at user permissions for this. So we have a direct inline policy called allow enumerate roles, and this can list and get IAM roles and their policies. We are part of a developers group. We are able to enumerate IAM users, groups, and policies, which kind of makes sense because we were just doing that. And we can also list the access key information for both Joel and the Mike users specifically. We can't do that for Mary or the other user that I forget the name of. Was it Mike maybe? No, we can do Mike. Is it Joel? Oh, Chris, Mary and Chris. So we can't do that for them, but we can do it for Joel and Mike. We have 4 total users in this AWS account. The other 2 users are part of an infrastructure group that has a permission boundary, so that's good to know. And then Joel and Mike are part of a developer group, and there is 1 active access key for user Joel. Kind of rehashing what we just said. And then we've got some notable findings here. So we have a support role that exists with allow S3 full access for role. That has a policy granting S3 full access, but it's only assumable by the user Mary. So as a security researcher, if I see this, I'd probably want to try and get access to Mary. And there might be different ways of doing that, but now I kind of understand the lay of the land. I understand there's users, I understand there's groups, I understand what groups these users are part of, and so on and so forth. We get more info about the infrastructure group boundary. And then we've got key access permissions where we can enumerate most IAM resources. We can list access keys. We cannot assume roles. Well, maybe we can, but I specifically requested to skip that. So as a next step, we might try to do that. And then we do have some limited abilities, but really we were able to scrape quite a bit of information from just having Claude Code go at it, right? And you can do this with Codex. You can do this with Gemini CLI. You can do this with any powerful enough model, which even some local models that you could run on a cheaper GPU, although I say cheaper, they're still expensive, but like a consumer grade GPU, you'd be able to do a lot of this. It just might take a lot longer. And the context might overwhelm the local models, but this is not computationally intensive, relatively speaking. So you could do this even with very cheap models and get some good results. So any questions about this before I move on to the next step, right? Any questions about what I just did, how we're able to get to this point, or how this works? Have any of you actually ever done this before? Have you let your LLM run loose in your environment and seen what it could do with it? And if so, what LLM did you use? Were you using GPT? Were you using some of the like Sonnet or Opus, or using some Gemini models? Like, what do you tend to use when you're interacting with AWS? Kind of curious. Or have you not? Maybe you're not allowed to because of corporate policies, which is very valid. Surely some of you have opinions on this. I can't be the only one experimenting with this, obviously, right? You know, I actually forgot to do a step that I was planning on doing, which is ironic because I basically got the exact same result anyway, I think. But I was going to feed it the cheat sheet that we have on here. So I was going to say, hey, go through this cheat sheet, run these commands here in particular, but it basically got to the same outcome. It didn't try to list some of the MFA stuff. So it did skip some of the things that it might otherwise have done if I fed it that information. Yeah, I forgot to do that. So that's interesting. Essentially got to similar results. And that's not too surprising given that a lot of this information is scraped by the LMs, is trained on it. They have access to all the docs. So not entirely surprised. All right, surely some of you have used these models against AWS. Like, come on, comment, give me some feedback here. Am I talking to bots, or do we have real human beings? Am I talking to LLMs? I don't think so, because then they'd be more chatty. Look, I'm not trying to throw shade here, but not a single comment about which LLM you've used. Come on. I know at least a couple of you in the audience are using LLMs here, right? I can't be the only one. It's good to know how attackers are using AI so we can present to steal. Absolutely, yes. Yeah, that's very true, Mourinho. I think that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up, because even if you're not doing it, guarantee you threat actors are doing it. And understanding how that can work against your environment is super important and useful. And you can also use that to test your defenses. So you can see, hey, how does this model perform against our defenses? Are there gaps that we don't know about that existing automation tools simply don't see, right? You could always just run that and see what comes of it. All right, I'm not moving forward until I get a comment from somebody in this audience about which LLMs you've tried. I'm just not going to move forward, guys. Like, come on. Are you guys even here? Am I talking to bots? Mourinho, I appreciate the engagement here, but you're literally the only one. What's going on? I've got at least 20 people tuning in between both platforms. I'm not getting a single comment about LLMs. Are you not using LLMs? Is that why? Or are you just shy to share what LLMs you've used? Come on, folks, give me a comment. Oh, that's interesting. Thanks. I'm not. Is it Abine? Abine? Sorry if I'm butchering that name as well. So you're saying your org is using Claude Code, but you don't have access, so you're using GPT. Interesting. Yeah, I wonder why they limit who can access certain types of models. That's interesting. I wonder if it's like different teams using different models or having access to it. So you've been using GPT? I'm curious to hear what kind of results you've been having with that. I feel like GPT's been hit or miss, right? Like especially their latest model, it's got some stuff that it does pretty well, and then other things that it's just kind of hit or miss with. So yeah, curious to hear what experiences you've had with that. But thank you for the comment. I appreciate it. I'm honestly just kind of shocked that we only have like 2 people commenting right now. I'm sorry guys, but I'm a little bit disappointed. These live streams take a lot of effort, so it's a little bit disappointing that nobody's even answering my questions here. So we'll go ahead and move on and wrap up here. But yeah, I don't know. Is there just no interest in this type of content? Like there's people tuning in, but just no engagement. So I don't know, maybe I should stop doing these weekly live streams and just have it for specific members that are actually engaging with it. So Marino and Nabine, if you want to reach out in DMs, I can send you some additional info about this if you want, if you're interested. But what I'll wrap up with here today is basically just have it kind of take what it learned here and go ahead and give me a summary script that we could run. You could do this with Python, you could do this with Bash, you could do this with all sorts of things. But let's go ahead and just ask it and see what it does. Hey, so great work with enumerating this AWS environment here. How could we do this in a faster and more efficient way with the script? Maybe looking at Bash scripts and Python scripts, if you can give me some insights on that. And then instead of having it actually execute this and start writing this code, I'm going to hit Shift Tab. And you can see at the bottom there, it's got Accept Edits on. I'm going to shift it again, and it's going to go to plan mode. So when it's in plan mode, it won't actually start executing. It's really just thinking about the problem. Hey, Rashid, welcome in. Yeah, thanks for joining us on your lunch break. Yes, so this is different in the sense that we're using AI to do it instead of going through manually. So if you've already gone through the main lab write-up and video, then this is still going to be new information. You might want to go back and actually rewatch this on the YouTube live stream. So if you go to our YouTube channel, you can watch the replay of it. But yeah, so this is going to be different. And that's kind of why I wanted to do it with AI today, so that we can see a very different approach. That way, if you've even gone through the existing lab, you get some useful information from it. So you can see it thinking hard about this problem, right? It's going to look at both creating bash scripts. Oh, what happened? I got to scroll down. So I ignore that little glitch there. But basically what it's going to do is give us an automation plan. So it's going to create a script called AWS enum.sh with parallel execution using background jobs for faster enumeration. Sure. It's going to use JQ for clean output. It's going to have some error suppression, some color coding. All right, so it's going a little crazy, maybe a little bit more than we'd actually want from this. But what I typically tend to do here is kind of review the different options and then see which one makes more sense and then tame it. Like bring it back to reality and say, all right, I don't need color coding. I don't need all this fancy stuff. I just want this, right? In this case. Now with Python, maybe we get some additional functionality that we wouldn't get with Bash, maybe not for this very simple use case, but you can use your choice of tool, right? In either case, it would create both if I let it go wild here, and then it would actually walk you through the implementation steps and the performance optimizations. So if I were to execute this, it would actually go through and create these scripts. Then we'd have to debug, right? Actually look at the code, go line by line, make sure that it's doing what we want to and not going crazy. And then also, we'd probably not have it one-shot this. Honestly, sometimes it one-shots. Most of the times it's got some bugs and we need to go through and fix some bugs and go through there. But this is kind of an interesting and unique approach as compared to the existing lab, where we had to go through and execute commands manually. And at the end of that, it gave us a report. We could have that output as a document, like markdown file or something like that, clean it up, and then send it to the rest of the team. And or we can turn that into scripts now. And now that it knows what we were looking for and what worked in this environment, if we want to replicate this across our other AWS environments, we could just have it create that shell script or that Python script, and then it would do it a lot faster and not use up all of our tokens. So that's a little bit of a demo on how to do that. Oh, good question. So we've got a question coming in asking about how do you feel about Perplexity? I'm new with LLMs and was given a free pro membership. I mean, look, if you're given a free pro membership, use it for sure. That's awesome. I'm glad that whoever, whether it's your org or not, gave you something to experiment with. I've not used Perplexity that much for a couple of reasons. One is I don't necessarily understand the use case, if I'm being completely honest with you. I know they've got some, I think they came out with a browser that uses AI. Not really my jam. I like using AI, don't get me wrong, but I don't necessarily want it embedded in my browser for a few different reasons. But also, like, there are some functionalities in there that I've used, like for stock analysis. They've got a pretty good free tier for stock analysis stuff, so I sometimes use it for that purpose. But when it comes to research, like I've used it a couple times and I don't necessarily get better results than just going to ChatGPT or Claude and asking it to do the same thing. So I've personally just not necessarily used Perplexity all that much, but I know some people who love it and use it very regularly. So try it out. Maybe it's your jam. Maybe it works well for your use case and what you're trying to do with it. And in that case, come back to me and let me know. I'm curious to hear what you end up using it for and what you like about it and what you dislike about it. And maybe I should reevaluate my opinion of the tool. So not at all. So the question, will you be mad if I use this tool in some cyber labs? Of course not. That's why I'm demoing it, right? Absolutely, go for it. Again, like I said before, though, don't just rely on that. Actually do some stuff manually as well. Go through and make sure that you understand what the model is doing. Don't just look at or don't just YOLO the model and you have no idea what it did. You're just getting the output. You need to understand every single step of what it's taking and how it works. But once you do that, yeah, have fun. Use these models against our lab environments. I have no problem with that. Yeah, they definitely, for the comment on the screen about Perplexity, they definitely seem to have put a lot of effort into search engine stuff. What's interesting about that, though, is there kind of seems to be a battle. I don't know if you all have stayed up to date with it or not. I've just kind of scrolled through social media and seen it in passing. But for example, Perplexity is kind of notorious for ignoring site rules, I guess is a way of saying it. Like, you know how you can have a robots.txt that says, if you're a search engine, I don't want you looking at these pages. Please respect this. If you're a nefarious robot, you can still ignore that based on your programming. And so Perplexity is kind of known for just like going through and just scraping and quote unquote stealing as much of that information as possible, even ignoring a website's request not to do that. And so Cloudflare started implementing some anti-AI measures. And of course, Perplexity hates that because then it limits Perplexity's effectiveness. So this is interesting. You know, I don't know what the right or wrong answer is, especially for the future, but there's definitely some battles going on right now about things like Perplexity that probably overreach a little bit. But also if you start to limit them, that limits effectiveness. So who's right, who's wrong? I don't know. I don't know if you guys have opinions on that either, but definitely interesting times we live in for sure. All right, cool. Any other questions about this? And I guess why not? Let's just go ahead and have it create these scripts while I'm talking. We can see what it does. I'll keep an eye on it, but otherwise it'll be fairly autonomous here. And we'll see what kind of scripts it comes up with. So any questions about the lab environment? I know a lot of you have gone through this before about the approach or any of that. So if you haven't yet gone through this lab, highly recommend going through the course overall. Go through this first one, follow the order, then go through the one we just went through, but manually do it. Then go through the secrets manager enumeration, look at the cheat sheet for that, and then look at Amazon S3 enumeration as well after that. We might have some more upcoming enumeration stuff. I don't have any planned for this month, I don't think, but we may add some additional ones in here because there's a lot you can do with various services. So this course is a work in progress, always will be probably, but I'll at least give you a good starting point. All right, so back on here, we can see that it's still working on it. So it's creating the bash one first. Let's look at the to-dos. Seems a little bit slower today. I feel like it would have already completed it by now, but sometimes it's a little bit slower. All right, we're not going to make it executable yet because I'm not actually going to run this. I mean, we could, but it would probably have bugs, and then we're going to be on here for an hour troubleshooting those bugs. So probably have better things to do than that. Keep going. Just don't make it executable. If I can type. What's interesting too, if you're used to Gemini or Codex or something, they each have their own unique way of handling accepting, moving on to the next step. Like, how do I accept edits, having plan mode? They all kind of work a little bit differently. They're similar, but they do have some differences for sure. All right, so now it's moving on to the Python one. And then it plans on testing both. Again, we won't do that probably. And then it would create usage documentation for both as well. This is great for simple scripts, for stuff like that, where otherwise you would have had to rely on somebody else's Python tool they put on GitHub 4 years ago. That's probably outdated. In this case, we're in the era of just like, if you need a quick script, a quick tool, you can do it yourself. Just have an AI go at it. And as long as you have a little bit of programming knowledge, you can review what it's doing before actually using it, make sure that it's not going to blow everything up, and just go from there. Like, it's kind of wild how many scripts I've created over the past 6 months that have sped up my workflow a lot by just asking it to do stuff like this. And a lot of those I don't use anymore. So it's kind of the question of, should I have even created in the first place? But hey, if it automates things that you're going to do 5 times otherwise and reduces it to one script, then I don't know, that's probably time well spent, as long as you didn't spend days trying to troubleshoot errors with it. So yeah, it's a little bit slower today. Don't know why. I wonder if they're just having higher load or something, but usually it would have already been done by now, because it's not like it's a very large Python script or anything, but we'll wait for it to finish and then we'll start wrapping up. Unless it's going to take half an hour, in which case probably not. So as we're waiting for that, maybe we can chat about the other models. So if you haven't yet tried, Gemini CLI is another decent one. Up until recently, I didn't love Gemini, if I'm being honest with you. I just didn't have super good results. Now they're starting to get a lot better. Google's stepping up for sure. So you can check out the Gemini CLI. It's a direct competitor to Claude Code, essentially. So you can launch it. It looks very, very similar, works similarly as well. It just gives you access to models like Gemini 2.5 Pro. They also have a light version. They have a pretty generous free tier, so you can always try it out with that free tier. And then if you like it a lot, you can always upgrade. I think it's like 20, 25 bucks a month or something like that for their lowest tier. And then there's also Codex. So you can check out OpenAI's Codex, and you can get started with that. And you can see how that works. Again, a little bit different, but basically competing with Claude Code as well. So you could try that out. I don't have as much experience with Codex, although I do plan on trying it out here this week and see how it does. Those are currently the 3 that I would recommend if you want terminal-based model access. Oh, let's see. Yeah, we're not going to test it yet. So if you want terminal-based access, those are kind of the 3 I'd recommend starting with. They're not the only ones, but kind of the big dogs right now. And then, of course, you have, if you want to have a full-on editor, you've got stuff like Cursor, Windsurf, VS Code with Klein, and some other model or some other tools as well. All right, so we can see it created the AWS Enumerator PY and Bash, so we can cat those out. And we can see exactly what the script looks like. Okay, this is actually a lot more in depth than I thought it would do. That's Opus for you. Opus likes to overachieve. So that explains why it took a lot longer than I thought it did. Probably burned through more tokens than I meant to. But so we've got all kinds of color stuff that we probably don't need. It tried to generate its own classes for not only enumerating, but also generating reports, which again is probably a lot more than we would want. This is probably ridden with bugs, unfortunately. We can also enumerate the what was it? The bash one. enum.sh. And we can see what that would look like if we were instead to use a bash script. So it kind of did the same thing here, try to create a summary report and output that information for us. So the thing with Opus is it's an overachiever. So you really have to rein it in with your prompts and as it goes along. Otherwise, it's going to do a bunch of stuff you probably didn't even want in the first place. So I would start a little bit smaller with your scripts, really just have it focus on the enumeration side and then add things to it, because otherwise you end up having a bunch of bugs and wasting your time troubleshooting anyway. So yeah, any last minute questions? I see some comments here. Let me walk through those and then we'll start wrapping up. First question, are you using the free version of Cloud Code and integrated with AWS? I joined a few minutes late, so I didn't catch the initial. No, so the free Cloud Code does not give you access to Opus. You have to at least have $20 a month plan. Actually, maybe even the 20 a month plan doesn't give you Opus anymore, I think, because they just burn through the credits too quickly. So I think if you want access to Opus, you have to start at $100 a month. If you asked me a month ago, I would have told you it was absolutely worth it. I was paying the $100 a month. Opus was magical. They've absolutely nerfed it. I don't know if it was for cost reasons or what, but 100% Opus and Sonnet are nowhere near what they were when even just a month ago. So I don't know what Anthropic's doing, but I think they're losing a lot of customers as a result of that. So I've actually downgraded. I'm just still on that plan because it doesn't prorate. So that's why I still have access to Opus. But no, if you're using the free version, I think you can still use Cloud Code. You may have to use the API keys and then get billed through that. You'll have to look into it. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest with you. Another question here. Oh, thanks. I appreciate the kind comment, Mourinho. It's very kind of you. Oh, that's awesome. I'm glad the company is paying for your subscription. I wish more organizations did that, man. That's awesome. It's valuable skills to build, makes you more valuable employees for them. So it makes a lot of sense they would refund your subscription for you. That's awesome. I'm glad you're enjoying it, and I'm glad they found value in that as well. So thank you for the engagement today. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for spending some time with me on this live stream today. I appreciate it. If you have any more questions, reach out to my DMs. I know you're on YouTube right now. If we're not connected on LinkedIn, connect with me on LinkedIn, send me some DMs on there. We also have a Discord. So if you go to the site and you go over to community right here, you can click on join Discord, or you can just go straight to cyber.com/Discord and you can join us on there if you haven't already. And you can contact me there either through DMs or through the community if you have any questions. I go through the community first. It might be faster. I don't always see DMs same day. So yeah, if you have any follow-up questions or anything I can help with, definitely let me know. But I appreciate the comments today and thanks for spending some time with me. And last thing I'll mention is if you go to our Luma, so if you go to where did I put it? If you go to resources and then you go to webinars, you'll see view upcoming events. So if you click on view upcoming events, and I'll share this link in chat as well, you can see we have one next week. So the one next week is going to be called Your First Security AI Agent with Strands and Bedrock. So I'm going to show you how to use Strands agents to build AI agents that can do content moderation. So it can detect things like spam, hate speech, that sort of thing. So you can use that as an API for your application. Basically, it's building a full-on security AI agent using Strands agent, which is open source, and also using Amazon's Bedrock. And you can select whatever model you want through that. So this one's going to be an awesome live stream for next week. Definitely register to that one if you have any interest. And then the following week, I've got another surprise live stream as well. So that's what I'll leave you with. Go ahead and check that out. And then let me make sure that I don't think it shared that link everywhere. And I appreciate it. Thank you guys for the comments today. Thanks for joining in. Hope this was helpful. And